Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition on the Four Lads podcast of the Rangers Years, where we interview men who've had the privilege of wearing the Rangers shirt. And it's a very special episode for me tonight, it's got to be said, because I'm going to interview the first man I ever saw score for Rangers against Celtic. Let's quickly give you these numbers: 303 games, 112 goals, 3 league titles, 3 Scottish Cups, 3 League Cups, member of the Barcelona Bears squad, 10 years a Rangers player. My God, what an introduction to the one and only Derek Parlane. Derek, how are you?
I'm great, Davie. I'm great. That music at the start was great. I'm known to sing a few songs, so I was kind of joining in that. Four lads had a dream. It's great. It's great to be here, and always great to talk about my career at the Rangers.
Fantastic. I had been told by an unofficial source that your version of Penny Arcades is almost as good as Sammy King's, actually.
I did sing the Penny Arcade. I got invited up to Aberdeen for a sportsman's dinner. Maybe 5 years ago now, 6 years ago, and I said, and I knew Sammy was going to be there, and I said, I'll come to the dinner and I'll speak and tell my stories as long as I can sing the Penny Arcade with wee Sammy, and it worked, and it was great. I think it's on YouTube. So yes, it was a very special night. I love this song. I've said to Sammy, one day we might sing it at half time at Ibrox. Sammy, let's aim for that.
Oh, fantastic! I'll look forward to that, I'm telling you. So, usually the first question we always ask ex-players is about the day they signed for Rangers, but I want to go back even slightly further with you, if that's okay,
yeah.
Because you feel like sort of a unique Rangers family, and that your dad played for Rangers, and he even scored for Rangers against Celtic at Parkhead back in the 1940s. So, because he was an ex-Rangers player, was it always kind of your ambition as a boy that was the team you wanted to play for?
Yeah, there was no question of anyone else I wanted to sign for. It was definitely the Rangers. And my dad's, I only started realising how important that was for the family and for my dad, who was a very quiet man. He had his own nursery, and he was a market gardener in the wee village we lived in Rue, on the west coast of Scotland. And as I grew up, I realised how big that was. My dad playing for the Rangers, and he would take me up to Ibrox every now and again, and I obviously wanted to emulate my dad and make my dad proud, and everything else that a lad wants to do for his dad. And I was very proud of Dad playing for the Rangers, and the fact that we are the only father and son to play for the Rangers and score a league goal against Celtic is unbelievable. And I've got a frame picture of my dad scoring his goal against Celtic at Parkhead. He scored the winning goal in a 3-2 victory, and it's identical. If you look at my goal against Celtic in the 73 Cup final, the style of us both heading the ball was identical, which is, I only realised that over the last couple of years, but it's fantastic. I'm very proud of that.
And quite rightly too. As it's something that I don't know if it'll ever happen again.
No, especially I'm not sure.
There's fewer and fewer Scots playing for it in the first team now, so you just don't know if it'll ever happen.
No, I don't think it will.
Yeah, so your dad actually joined Rangers from Queen's Park, and you played for Queen's Park as well before you played for Rangers. So tell us how it came about that you joined Rangers then.
God, I was just obsessed with playing football. Played for my primary team, Rue Primary. Played for Helensburgh, for Hermitage Academy in Helensburgh.
Yep.
I couldn't get enough of football, and a team in Dumbarton phoned me up and says, Dumbarton Castle Rovers they were called then, Stevie, and he said, we'd like to come up and play in the afternoon. So I played for the school in the mornings, and I got to Dumbarton in the afternoon. And it was a lot tougher. There was, it was a higher standing. It was a lot tougher because there was older lads playing.
Yeah.
And then one night we got a phone call from Harry Davis, the famous ex-Rangers player.
Yeah.
So Harry was a coach at Queen's Park at the time, and Harry came in. My dad came in and says, Derek, Harry Davis wants to speak to you on the phone. Well, I was blown away by that alone. I'd never met him before, but I knew he was a coach at Queen's Park. And he wanted me to go up once a week and just do a bit of training up there with Queen's Park. And I did that, and I loved it. It was great. And then one day, Harry says, look, there's a game at Lesser Hampden, which is where Queen's Park play now.
Yeah.
coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's a Queen's Park 11 versus a Scottish under-18 schoolboy team, and we'd like you to play for the Queen's Park team. And it was a mix of no first team, just second and third team, and lads not like myself. I was only 16.
Yeah.
And that night I scored both goals in a 2-1 victory. And then I was picked for Scotland under 18s to play against Northern Ireland at Kilbowie Stadium, the old Clydebank Stadium. Aye. Yeah. And we drew 3-3 with Northern Ireland, and I scored all three goals. And then that's where it all started. I was playing at midfield, and the phone was ringing like mad. Davie, there's all sorts of clubs wanting to sign me, and my dad says, I've got Aberdeen coming down this week. I says, Dad, tell me you're kidding. There's no way in the world. With all due respect, I want to play for Aberdeen. But they still came down. Eddie Turnbull was quite a famous manager for Aberdeen, and his chief scout, Bobby Calder. And they sat in the living room and offered me schoolboy form. And my dad says, look, we're not going to sign anything at the moment because I've got Rangers coming down tomorrow. Well, I nearly fell off my chair, Davie, because my dad hadn't told me the Rangers were coming down tomorrow. And the very next day, the late great Willie Waddle and the late great Willie Thornton, manager and assistant manager at Rangers, came down. Don't mind me saying, I was shitting myself with these two great icons coming and sitting in the lounge in my mum and dad's house. And my dad says, right, don't say anything, Dad. I says, Dad, don't worry, I'm so nervous, I won't be able to say anything. Anyway, he's blagged it in as much that he says, what's the deal, lads? Willie Waddle says, well, the deal is, here's a schoolboy form. He says, my dad says, he's no signing schoolboy. He'll sign professional or nothing. Aberdeen were down yesterday and offered him a full-time professional contract, which they hadn't. And I just thought my dad had blown it. Anyway, they went out and considered it in the hall, and they came back in and says, right, we'll take him. We think he's going to be a really good player. And I signed professional that day for the Glasgow Rangers, and I couldn't believe it. When I left, I was a Rangers player. And about 2 weeks later, I joined in the first team dressing room. I joined all those iconic players that were on my bedroom wall. So it was like a whirlwind. It was fabulous. But my dad did brilliant for me.
Yeah, did they remember him? They must have remembered.
Both knew my dad. Both Willie Waddle and Willie Thornton knew my dad, and they were all first name terms. So it was, that obviously that softened the atmosphere somewhat. So they chewed the fat for 10 minutes before they got down to signing me. So.
So you mentioned those games you played in and scored. You were playing in midfield then. So did Rangers sign you as a midfielder? Because obviously, the first couple of times I saw you played in midfield, but the vast majority of your career, I'm just wondering how it turned about that you ended up.
Well, to be honest, I'm not sure myself how it turned about because I was a midfield player and I played. I was fairly big for my age, and I was 5'11", 11 and a half, and I was quite quick and I was good in the air. I didn't mind a tackle, so I got stuck in the middle of the park. But it came up, and I played a couple of games in the first team as a midfield player against Falkirk, which wasn't memorable because it was before the terribly tragic, saddest day in Rangers history. So I don't know whether you want to talk about that now or you want to talk about that later.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. At the moment, I'm just wondering at what point you became a centre forward because you were an incredibly successful one.
Yeah. All I can say, Davie, is that I'd played in midfield against Falkirk in my first game.
Yeah.
And then I came on in another game against Clyde, which was about 10 days before the Bayern Munich game. And which I think they were sussing me out a little bit, but it came in a really strange way because it came, I maybe going ahead too far, but I can say that after the Bayern Munich game, which I know we'll go into in more detail, after we won the Cup Winners' Cup, and I came back, and we did, pre-season training, and then the season started. And about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks into the season, Jock Wallace called me into his office and said, "I need to speak to you, son." So I went in and I said, "What is it, Gaffer?" And he says, and I always remember Davie had a Rangers shirt over his leg. And he said, "Listen, son, we've been watching you closely lately. And you're going to start this season. Have a look at this." He threw the shirt across the room to me, on the other side of the table, and hold it up, and there's a number 9 in the back.
Right.
And I said, what you telling me, Gaffer?" He says, "I'm telling you that we've done a deal with Coventry for Colin Stein." I says, "What you mean you're selling Steenie?" And Steenie was my idol. I loved Steenie.
He was almost everybody's idol at that point.
Aye, he was a great player, and he scored goals. He was a nuisance in the dressing room, by the way, an absolute nuisance. But we loved the guy, and I thought he was a great player. And I actually said, "You're joking, aren't you? Why would you sell Steenie?" So he's giving me the number 9 shirt, and I'm saying, "No, Steenie should stay," which is all a bit bizarre. But he says, "No, I think we've watched you in training, we've watched you playing in the last couple of games. We think we've got a lot about you." And I started 5 or 6 games into that season as Rangers number 9. And it's as simple as that. I said, I've never played number 9 before, Gaffer. He says, "You go out and show us what you can do." Ended up scoring 27 goals. So it was amazing.
Yeah. So that was when Jock Wallace was manager. Obviously, he was assistant manager when you.
Yeah, it was Willie Waddle.
The team. So what was the kind of dynamic like with Willie Waddle in charge and Jock as the assistant? How was it sort of tactically and team talks and stuff? Who done what?
Well, Big Jock was definitely the trainer and the motivator. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I've never trained as hard in all my life than I did under Jock Wallace. And I grew to love the big man. He was different class. He was like a second dad to me.
Yeah. If
you needed a boot up the backside, he'd give you a boot up the backside. And if you needed an arm around your shoulder, he'd put his arm around your shoulder. And he was very much whatever goes on in this dressing room stays in this dressing room, which I don't think happens anymore. And I think it's very important. And Willie Waddle was the more serious one. He was the one that this is bizarre. He had a traffic. I don't know whether the boys have told you this, but he had a traffic light system outside his office at the top of the marble staircase in Ibrox, and it was red, amber, or green. And the message would come down to the boot room from one of the staff: "Derek, the Gaffer wants to see you. Willie Waddle wants to see you." And I used to hate going up them stairs because I never did. It was strange because, let's say I'd finished training, I was just about to start training, and I go up and I knock the door or press the button, and it goes red, which means just wait. Okay, so I'm waiting. 10 minutes later, it turns to amber, nearly ready. And then it goes to green. Now, I've been probably stood there for about 20 minutes when I go in. And he always sat, his seat was always higher and table than the chair you sat on. So he was looking down. I always remember him dropping his glasses and looking down at you. So he's either there to say, you're doing all right, I want you to do this, or he was giving you a bollocking. And so it was, I preferred Big Jock to Willie Waddle. There's no doubt about that. I didn't ever want to go up that marble staircase. He was quite a frightening man.
Mm.
He was quite a frightening man, whereas Big Jock was, that you just got what you got with Jock,
Yeah, but see, when it came to the sort of tactical side, so we'll just talk about the Bayern Munich game just in a minute.
Yeah.
Who decided the tactics against Bayern Munich? Did
I think it was a combination of the two of them. I think it was tactically that they played me in a game. I think it was against Clyde, my first team game. I came on as sub against Clyde, I think, just a week or 10 days before the Bayern Munich game. So I think between them they were looking at, and I did play very much in midfield, and I think. I'll joke when I say Big Jock's tactics. Big Jock thought 4-4-2 was the local bus that went past Ibrox, so he just wanted to get into them. Let's get into this lot and this is what I want you to do, kind of individually more than as a team. But we were very fit. I mean, the fitness side of lots of teams were beaten in the tunnel before we even went out because we were so fit. It was fantastic. We tended to run over teams in the last 15, 20 minutes, which certainly doesn't happen anymore.
I wish.
Yeah.
So they obviously decided that you were going to replace the injured John Gregg against Bayern. So that must have came as a bit of a surprise when they told you. But what do you remember about the fact you were going to play, and then how the game itself went?
Crikey. How long have you got here, David?
I know.
So I hadn't been involved in the Cup Winners' Cup up until the semi-final, with the first leg in Munich, and I travelled with the boys, which was a great experience. It's the first time I'd been away with them all as a team, and it gives you a different outlook on the lads. It gives you a different outlook on how they are and really what motivates them and what they do, you know, and all that kind of thing. Other than training, where you just train and you go home, you train and you go home. You kind of living with them for 2 or 3 days, and I didn't play and I wasn't on the bench. I sat in the stand and watched a fantastic game of football, but we were overrun but ended up coming away with a 1-1 draw.
Yeah.
And we brought them back to Ibrox a couple of weeks later, and I was in the squad, and my dad says, "Derek, do you know John Gregg's injured for the return leg?" And I said, "I know that, Dad." He says, "Do you think you might have a wee chance of getting on the bench?" Because we all thought Alfie Conn would get the number 4 shirt.
Yeah.
And I said, "Dad, if I got the bench, that would be beyond my wildest dreams." So I remember vividly an hour and a half before kick-off. I remember the atmosphere around the ground. It was sparking. It was so electric. You know, the windows were open in the dressing room onto the road outside, and the atmosphere, and we could just hear the noise. It was incredible. And he called us in and he says, "Right, lads, sit down." This was Jock Wallace. He says, "Here's the team for tonight. Number 1, Peter McCloy. Number 2, Sandy Jardine. Number 3, Billy Mason. Number 4, Derek Parlane. Number 5, number 6, number 7. I never heard it. I switched off, and I looked round, and the boys were just getting on with what they normally do as soon as they were named. And Jock says, "Derek, come on, I want a word with you, son." So I went into the boot room, and he says, "Right, listen, this is we've watched you in training lately. We've watched you in a couple of games. We're going to give you a job tonight. We think you can do it." They've got a guy in midfield called Franz Roth, who was a German player that he scored a winning goal against Rangers 5 years early in the All you have to do, Derek, is mark him out of the game. All I had to do was mark him, right? And if you get half a chance, just do the big German so-and-so. I went, "All right, Jock, is that it?" He says, "Yeah, that's what I want you to do. You stick with them all game and don't give them a kick," which was in my mind as the buzzer went in the dressing room for me to walk out with the boys into the tunnel. So I'm standing with these Steenie and Bud and Sandy Jardine, Peter McCloy, Dave Smith.
Yeah.
And then the dressing room door opens in the tunnel there, the dressing room of the Bayern Munich team, and out comes Franz Beckenbauer, Gerd Müller, Sepp Maier. The monster that was Franz Roth, who I was marking, was about 6'3", and I'm 5'11" and about 11 and a half stone wet through. And all I had to do was do the big German bastard, you know. So anyway, it was an unforgettable. And the smoke and the atmosphere in the tunnel as you stand there waiting to go out on the field was just electric. So that's how I found out that I was playing, and Sandy scored the first goal in the first couple of minutes. I had a few kicks at Franz Roth, but he was a big, strong man. I was only a lad. I was only, 18.
Yeah.
But he didn't really get a kick of the ball at all. I think I did a good job. And on the 21st minute, we got a corner kick at the Broomlawn Road end. And wee Bud swings the ball across, Sepp Maier punches it out. And I thought, I've got a wee chance of getting on the end of this. as it dropped just inside the 18-yard box, and I caught it with my left foot, which Davie was for standing on only. Wasn't my best. My right foot was my strongest, and I have volleyed it into the top, my top left-hand corner, Seth Meyer's top right, and the noise that came out of the crowd that night was electric. My dad, God love him, when the team was announced, that the old tannoy system at Ibrox wasn't the best. My dad says, was that Derek's name? Was that Derek's name? And his mate said, aye, Derek's playing. So that was, but that night changed my life. That one chance, that one opportunity changed my life, because the next day the press were swarming all over us down at my wee village in Rue. Yeah. And it was remarkable.
I was actually at that game as would have been 8. I've been 8-year-old when I was.
Remember what the atmosphere was like?
I was with my dad in the uncovered terracing at I always call it the Celtic end. I keep getting into all kinds of trouble for calling it the Celtic end. That end of the park anyway, the uncovered end.
It always was the Celtic end. David,
that's what I always called it when I was a wee boy, and I still keep calling it that. But as you say, what a noise, and it was incredible. And my abiding memory of the game, apart from the 2 goals and the celebrations, was Willie Johnson sitting on the ball.
Aye, he did. He did. Oh, he'll say something like he had his shoelace undone, he had to tie his shoe, something like that. But it was, but we beat them. We beat them fair and square. We beat them easy that night, because Beckenbauer was the first one. I remember Steenie saying to me, he's chucked it. Because Steenie gave him a pace and all nice, and Bud running past people. But we outplayed them, and Franz Beckenbauer, which is a strange thing to say, absolutely chucked it that night. Last 20 minutes wasn't interested. But it was an amazing game, amazing European debut for me, one I'll never forget. And when I talk like this, it's like it was only yesterday it happened. It's amazing. It's great.
I know. I've been on a few podcasts talking about that game, actually, because I'm one of the few that's in the team that is actually old enough to have seen it. I still think that there hasn't been a better European team knocked out by a Scottish team in Europe since then.
Do you know? I think
the odd one-off game.
Yeah.
We actually knocked them out. We actually knocked them out.
Yeah.
Did you say Gerd Muller, Paul Breitner, Uwe Hoeneß?
Yeah. And do you know what, Davie? Really interesting is the fact that 2 years later, in the '74 World Cup, which Germany won, half that team, the Bayern Munich team, were in that German team that won the World Cup. Yeah. And the double whammy is that Celtic got bumped out the European Cup on the same night. So there was we had 80,000 at Ibrox. There was 150. There's 70,000 at Parkhead. Yeah. With 150 Rangers and Celtic supporters in the town that night, and I don't think that has ever happened since. So it was, it made it that wee bit sweeter. Yeah,
I remember singing songs about Dixie Dean's missing a penalty. Let's put it that way.
We've all been there.
So obviously that got us into the final. Now John Gregg was fit again for the final, so you didn't make the starting oven, but you were with the squad in Barcelona, so. That must have been a heck of an experience before, during, and after that game.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. The boys were great. Yeah, it was just, and we were all told you could bring a lady with you to Barcelona. It's a final. Boys, you can take your wives. The lads that aren't married, you can take somebody with you. And me, Colin Jackson, and Derek Johnson took our mums. So the mums went, and they stayed. All the women stayed in Sitges, and the boys obviously stayed in Barcelona. And at the end, when we won it, they said, right, there's a couple of buses or taxis coming to pick the ladies up. And what time do you want them to come? So the three with their mum says, what's the earliest bus? I think the earliest one was something like midnight or something. That was the earliest one. We said, okay, we'll get our mums away so we can have a good time. So the mums left, and the boys, some of them stayed with their wives, some of them didn't. So it was a wonderful atmosphere. The game actually itself was spoiled by the Spanish police. I've no doubts about that whatsoever. The ref blew the whistle for something. I think it was a foul or something with a minute to go, and the Rangers fans came on to celebrate. They thought it was a full-time whistle, and what did the Spanish police do? But they drew their batons on them.
Yeah.
Now, if you see your son getting hit with a baton, you know you're not going to let that happen, or your dad or whatever it is. It just did. We managed to get the fans back off, and then a minute later, or somebody blows his whistle, and all the fans come back on the pitch, and they couldn't get them off the pitch. They called so that the cup was presented to us in the dressing room area.
Yeah, which
was, I'm not blaming the Rangers fans for one minute for that. I just think it was handled by the officials very wrongly. It would have been nice, but we still celebrated as if we'd won the Cup Winners' Cup downstairs. Don't worry about that.
No.
But we wish we'd been able to have it presented in front of our fans.
Yeah, I remember the team coming round Ibrox in a kind of coal lorry or something, and the night after in the pouring rain.
We'll never forget that. Health and safety gone crazy. No health and safety. So nowadays you see luxury coaches, open top coaches go around like Arsenal win the league and Man City winning whatever they win every season, and there's hundreds of thousands of people there. Well, it was a quick decision that we'd have a couple of laps round the Ibrox track on a coal lorry, which had been scrubbed up for the day, and it had some Union Jacks and the flags on it, but there was no railings round the side that if anyone fell off, then you'd fall off. So we're all hanging on to each other going round the pitch for a couple of laps. I mean, it was just amazing. Just added to the whole show. Tremendous.
Yeah, and obviously that was the summer that Willie Waddle then moved upstairs, and
he did.
And Big Jock took over. And you mentioned him selling Colin Steen and you becoming centre forward. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that first season when you became a regular, if you like, because that was when you became a regular in the team, scoring a lot of goals, as you said.
Yeah.
You played against Celtic for the first time in the new year. A game I've got bad memories of that because my dad refused to take me to it. My mum wouldn't let me go because of the disaster 2 years before, and it was the first New Year game since the disaster, and she wouldn't let him take me to it. So,
Davie, sorry, can I just interrupt you?
Of course.
Just for a minute, just before we go on from our victory in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Our motivation before the Cup Winners' Cup started, I'll never forget Willie Waddle bringing us all into the dressing room, and we'd lost 66 fans.
Yeah.
Every funeral was attended by a Rangers player, and I, as an 18-year-old, was 17. I attended 5 funerals. I'd never been to a funeral before in my life, so it affected everybody.
Yeah.
It affected the whole club really strongly, actually, and the players. And Willie Waddle came in and gave a great talk to us all, saying, "Look, we're in the Cup Winners' Cup. We've got a chance here. Let's do it for our fans." And that was the motivation behind us going through and winning the Cup Winners' Cup, because something like that should never have happened. 66 supporters going to a game and not coming home was one of the most tragic things I've ever been involved in. And I would never want to be involved in anything like that again. But Willie Waddle motivated us, and Jock did, to go through and win that cup, and that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything else that would have been more appropriate than actually winning the greatest trophy in the club's history in their memory.
That was for our fans.
Yeah. Terrible. I was saying my mum wouldn't let me go. I think my dad was at the disaster game, and back in the days before mobile phones, back in the days before all that,
100%.
He didn't come home till about 11 o'clock. He didn't know about it.
I know.
We were all climbing the walls at home, wondering if he was involved. It was terrible.
Aye, we were as well. My older brother Ian, Ian's 3 years older than me. He went to the game and he was late home. And as you say, no mobile phones, with no communication with him. And he came in about 11 o'clock at night, and he came away 5 minutes early. But yeah, we all cried, I think, when he came in the door. It was emotional, you know. Yeah.
So, New Year 1973. Then, so you're now the one that wears the number 9. Scored a few goals. First game against Celtic.
Yeah.
And you kind of done what you did for the next 7 or 8 years. You scored against them. So first goal against Celtic must have been something that sits in the Parlane memory bank, surely.
Wow, it was. We got a penalty.
That's right.
And John Gregg says to me, he didn't say to me, he says to the lads, who wants to take this? And it was at I'm going to say the Celtic end, the Broomlawn Road end.
Yeah.
And which was rammed. I says, I'll take it, John. And he says, are you serious, son? I says, yeah, I'll take it. I fancy it. He says, okay, if that's what you want. He threw the ball to me. And I remember walking to the penalty spot, and the crowd behind the goal were screaming all sorts of abuse at me. You could hear them all screaming at me, and the Celtic fans, the Celtic players lined up in 18 yards box behind me weren't exactly wishing me the best of luck either. You know, there was Billy McNeil, Ken Dalglish, Jim Brogan. Jim and I had a few tussles together. He didn't like me, and God love him, I know he's passed now, but I didn't like Jim. He didn't like me. And I remember putting the ball in the spot and walking back and thinking, God, have I made a mistake here? You know, because I was getting all sorts of abuse. And my dad used to always say, if you're going to strike the ball at the goal, make sure you strike the ball well, make sure you hit the target, son. I went, okay, that's in my dad's, that's me thinking about my dad. And I remember striking it. It was on target, but I didn't hit it well. Davie and Evan Williams, the Celtic goalie, parried it out, and I ran to get the rebound beside, of all people, Jim Brogan, and we didn't like each other. And I got to it first and managed to toe poke it in, but Jim was still lying on the ground beside me, and rather than putting a kindly hand out to help him up, I accidentally stood in his leg on the way out to get up, because I just thought I'd get a better, you know, the bit slippy on the grass. I just thought I might get a wee step up. I remember he was squealing a bit as I ran away and celebrated. So that's my memory of my first goal against Celtic. But yeah, every goal against Celtic was a great goal.
Yeah, Alfie Conn scored the winner in the last
He
minute.
did.
I remember
Alfie
well.
yeah.
It was actually that was the first time I ever saw. I could remember Rangers beating Celtic in the league. They hadn't beaten Celtic in the league for a few years before. Man.
No, we'd had a bit of a torrid time against Celtic, really, and you know we needed to get a win, and that was important. And I was lucky enough to. I loved those games, Davie. I loved the atmosphere, and I loved playing against Celtic because I was very passionate about that. I didn't ever want Celtic to beat us, and I was fortunate enough to score quite a few goals against them, which I'm very proud of. Yeah,
I'm going to save that thought, because I'm going to go back to that just in 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to just stick to that season just for another couple of questions. So this is a strange memory that I've got of that season. You scored all these goals. You became this sort of pin-up of the supporters. I'm not saying we forgot Colin Steen, but we started to forgive.
I eased the burden from them a wee bit, didn't I? I eased the memory,
But we were a wee bit too far behind in the league. We almost caught them. We very nearly caught them. I think we finished a point behind or something. But we went on a good Scottish Cup run. It's a weird memory I've got. We played Ayr United in the semi-final of the Cup.
I know. Yeah.
You scored a couple of goals. And you were the first player I ever remember seeing getting booked by the referee for celebrating. I'd never seen it before. I don't think anybody had seen it before, actually.
No, I didn't expect it. I ran behind the goals after scoring. I think I scored my header. And my momentum carried me, but I'm going to say this anyway, momentum carried me behind the goals. But while I was there, I celebrated with our fans, you know. And the ref pulled out his card and booked me. And I says, what's that for, ref? He says, run off the field of play and celebrating with the fans. I says, come on, ref. But he booked me. It was a strange one, really strange.
Because referees make a lot of headlines these days, as I'm sure you're well aware of. But were they any better then than they are now?
The game's changed since then, Davie. The game's massively changed. I mean, I've got so many scars in the back of my leg because the tackle from the back was allowed.
Yeah.
So it was a very different game. It was a much more physical game. I think referees should have it. It should be an easier role these days than it was in our day. But football was football in our day, and we got stuck in and we enjoyed it. We didn't know anything else. But I think the game these days is changed, and I don't like the changes they've made. I think VAR is an absolute joke. I think a lot of the referees this season have made wrong decisions. Got to watch what I'm saying here, but it's
your own friends, don't worry.
I know. I just think the last 5 or 6 games, the refs have had a nightmare with the Rangers games, really have, and I don't understand it. You know, when a penalty is a penalty, give the penalty. Don't go to VAR and wait 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes before you make a decision, ref. You know, everyone can see it's a penalty or it's a handball or whatever it might be. Yeah, so I don't think we got many favours this season.
You won't be alone in thinking that.
No.
So anyway, that United game was the semi-final at Hampden, so that got us into the final where we played Celtic.
Yep.
The first Rangers Celtic game I was ever allowed to go to. So this was my first ever Rangers Celtic.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I think it's the last time actually there was a more than 100,000 crowd at a Rangers Celtic game.
I think there were 123,000 people in there that day. It was massive. Yeah.
Incredible. I ended up near the front of the Rangers end because I couldn't see further back. I had to go down beside where the wee wall was so I could actually see the game.
Yeah.
And I got a great view of the first Rangers goal scored by Mr.
Scored by yours truly, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, wow, what a memory, what a day, what an unbelievable experience with royalty.
Yeah.
Being at a Scottish Cup final for the first time in our centenary year.
Yeah.
On my 20th birthday. Honestly, David, it does not get any better. I remember the noise of the crowd again, and remember within the first 20 minutes, Dalglish scoring the first goal for Celtic. Not long after that, Billy Matheson plays a great ball down the left side, down the stand side, and Charlie McDonald, who beats a couple of players and crosses a great ball into the 6-yard box, and I get my head on it and I scored, and it was on my birthday. Jesus, when I think back, it's just incredible. You know, I have been very fortunate to be able to do things like that. You know, my dad playing for the Rangers, scoring against Celtic, me playing for the Rangers. I just think it's a bit of a dream come true, really. You know, it's incredible. And I remember Jock running onto the pitch after Big Tam scored a stunning shot from about 4 inches, which he nearly missed on the edge of the Celtic line, goal line. Inside the post, and he scored it, and he ran away like a raging bull. But when the final whistle went and Big Jock ran on, and I was the first one he grabbed, I've never been crushed as much in all my life. Just the emotions and everything to do with that game and that day was remarkable.
Yeah, it's one of the historic games for me. As you talk about centenary year, and although we now know it's not the centenary year, but it was then. It's another one of these strange things I feel.
Yeah.
So. I love this stat. You scored in your first Old Firm game at Ibrox. You scored in your first Old Firm game at Hampden. And then later that year, you scored in your first Old Firm game at Parkhead. I don't think there's... I was trying to look it up. I can't find anyone else that actually scored in their first game against Celtic at Old Three Stadium.
As long as that continue, I'm happy with that. That's one I don't want anyone else to beat. I just loved playing against them. I loved the emotion of it all. You know, I loved... There wasn't any nerves in me at all. It was just playing against them. I call them them. It was just incredible. As I say, I did get sent off once for fighting with Jim Brogan.
Yeah, I remember it. That was at Parkhead.
It was in front of the main stand. I didn't make it obvious, did I? But yeah, so it happens. There was emotion. There's always emotion, and people ask me, what's your best goal against Celtic? And I say every single goal against Celtic was my best goal. So I'm not going to pick one out. I must finish off the Scottish Cup story, which is quite funny and quite emotional, really, because my dad says to me after the game, I drove home after the game with my mum and my dad. I drove, passing buses all the way down to Dumbarton and Helensburgh and Rue.
Yeah.
And my dad's saying, I think we might have a few folk in from the village tonight, Derek. I says, do you, Dad? He says, aye. The village only had about 1,000 people in it. And I think there was about 500 of them were in the house that night. He says, aye, we'll just have a wee drink. And I wasn't drinking at that time. And anyway, the house was absolutely heaving with people. And my dad says, Derek, go and get your Scottish Cup medal, and I want to pass it around and show everybody. I says, aye, okay. So I never thought anything off it, gave it to my dad. I went to bed that night, maybe, I don't know, about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I woke up and I remember passed my medal out, and I went, oh my God. So I went to see my mum and I says, Mum, where's my medal? She says, go and look under your dad's pillow, Derek. and I went under, my dad was snoring, and I looked under his pillow and my medal was under his pillow. I mean,
fantastic.
That says it all.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that.
I'm talking about your dad.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'll give you one other stat.
Go on.
You scored against Celtic 7 seasons in a row, which is absolutely McCoist is the only other one in my lifetime that's done that.
Really?
So as you say, you had this bit of a special spot for Celtic, but I'm now going to go into the season we finally brought the league title back, 74-75, which was which they had won 9 in a row. I had never seen Rangers winning the league, and I was in primary 7 at this time, I think. So you were top scorer that season as well. What do you remember about that season? Maybe in particular the New Year game against Celtic. That was one of my favourite ever Rangers Celtic game.
The big highlight was obviously stopping Celtic winning 10 in a row. We didn't ever want that to happen, so that really motivated us at the start of the season. I think I scored 5 goals in a 6-1 victory against Dunfermline that season, which was amazing. It's one of those games where you went out and whatever you hit, whatever you headed. I think there was a header from that side, a header from that side. I think one of them I might have put in on my hand. I'm not sure, but we'll keep that one low key. Right foot, left foot. And we beat them 6-1, and Derek Johnson scored the other one. Was the Celtic victory a 2-0 victory?
3-0 at New Year.
3-0 at New Year.
Tommy McLean what a game Tommy McLean had that day. But Derek Johnson got the first one with a header. Tommy McLean scored the second one going right through. Then you scored the header near the end. It looked over their goalkeeper.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. I remember it. Just the whole thing. Scoring goals for Rangers and scoring another goal against Celtic. It's funny now, because I used to, as you can imagine, dogs abuse in Glasgow whenever I was out, when I was at Rangers. But now there's a kind of mutual. There's a mutual appreciation. I remember getting out in Central Station last year and somebody running after me shouting my name, and I turned round and he said, "You're Derek, aren't you?" And I says, "I'm Derek." He said, I'm a Celtic supporter, but he said it's a pleasure to meet you. He says, I wish we'd had you in those days because I really liked you as a player. So it's nice now. There's no bitterness being an ex-player when you go back. If there is, it's very rare. So
who's it? I can't remember who I was talking to, but one of the players 3 years ago. Some of the Rangers players in Celtic was even socialised back then. I think.
We used to open if there was a new shop opening in Glasgow, for example, or there was some tape to be caught, then it would always be a Rangers and a Celtic player doing that. So we kind of got to know each other off the field, but on the field would rip each other's throats out. You know, and that's just the way it was. But that season was massive for us, stopping them winning 10 in a row, and also it was the last First Division match. It went to the SPL after that, you know, so it was, so a lot to celebrate that season.
Yeah, and certainly the day we won it at Easter Road is. I was lucky enough in this podcast. We done a little film tribute to Jock Wallace, and I was privileged to be able to interview his son John for it. And John's favourite memory of the time that his dad was at Ibrox was that day at Easter Road. That's the day he picked as the day he put above all others, even cup finals and everything. That's how much it meant.
Yeah, I don't blame him, because it was a mammoth game for us. You know, the Rangers fans there there was a load of them. It was Easter Road, opposite the tunnel where you come out. That whole area was just full of Rangers fans.
That's what I was that day.
Sorry?
That's what I was that day, in there somewhere.
Oh, was that what you were that day? So I remember a great cross coming in for Steenie, and I said to him, Steenie, I was shouting at you to let it go because I was right behind you at the time, and I'd have got my head on it, but you didn't. You selfishly scored it. You should have left it for me. And the noise again from the fans, and then when the final whistle went and we knew we'd won the league, and again, Big Jock made a beeline for me. I don't know why, but again, I got a bear hug off Jock Wallace. But great. We had a really strong dressing room. The camaraderie amongst the boys was, I'd never experienced anything like that before, and after, I'd never experienced anything in any of the clubs that I joined. You know, we were mates. We'd fall out, we'd fall in. What I said earlier, Davie, was that what goes on in that dressing room stays in that dressing room. It's very private, and we had things to abide. We had to wear shirts and ties. It was a great discipline amongst the boys, and it was just amazing. And I just think, I think we've lost all that. We've lost all that, and we always thought that was a huge part of being a successful Rangers team. It was immense. And if we can ever get back to that, then it would be. I think it would improve the team.
Yeah. So I was actually going to say, there's quite a number of colleagues that you had in that dressing room at that time who are regarded quite rightly these days as legendary players, Hall of Fame players. I was just going to throw 2 or 3 names at you, players that played with you, just to a sort of little summary of what it was like to either play with them or what they were like as players to play. And I've got to start with the captain. So, John Greig, what was it like to play with John Greig?
Greggy helped me tremendously at the start of my career on the field. As I stepped on as a new centre forward in my first season, and he'd say, "Look, if you're struggling, mate, I'll sort whoever it is. It's in the way I'm. If somebody's bad mouthing you or giving you a hard time, just I'll get involved. So he'd help me, but it wasn't before long that I learned how to look after myself on the football field and give as good as I got. But Greggy was immense. He was just, I can't remember what game it was where he played, and they came on. I think it was a game at Hampden, but I can't remember which one. And I think he'd twisted his ankle or something, and the strap. He says, "No, I'm not going off. I'm not going off. Strap my ankle up with his boot still on him, And that typified the man. And if you look at the final in Barcelona against Moscow Dynamo, we were all given photographs of. Jock Wallace did this through his management spell with us. He gave you a photograph because we hadn't seen you don't see players the way social media shows you players these days. Yeah. So he'd have a photograph of the player you were directly playing against, and he gave this photograph to John Greig, who was one of the outstanding Moscow Dynamo players, and he says that early on, if you sort him out, that's going to help us greatly. And if you watch the kickoff of the final in Barcelona against Moscow Dynamo, the ball's kicked off, and Greggy makes a beeline for this lad and absolutely puts him up in the air. You should watch it because it's so obvious. And he was just a great captain. He was a captain through and through.
Yeah. What about Sandy Jardine then?
Oh,
man has got his name in a stand at Ibrox now.
He has. What an athlete! What a great guy. Very sadly missed. He went far too young, but just a real machine. He would run up and down all day long. Great trainer, great at the training ground. Very fit lad, lovely lad to be around, and a great footballer. And I'm not sure I can say any more about that. No, just a great guy.
Yeah. I've got this theory about Sandy Jardine that he could have played right back, he could have played centre half, he could have played midfield, he could have played up front, he could have played. He was just a good football. He was just a great football player.
Yeah, he was. He was definitely.
What about? I think it's a guy who's sadly underrated nowadays. Maybe not so much then. Tommy McLean, who took over for Willie Henderson, obviously, which was Hugh Henderson was one of the most popular players at Ibrox.
Yeah.
Tommy McLean for me is a player I associate with so many good times, so many great goals.
And you're right to David, because he crossed so many great balls for me into the box. You know, we kind of worked really well together, and a great little footballer. You know, he's only really small, but heart of a lion, really, really did. And he worked hard, and you know, he was a real Ranger. He just loved playing. He loved playing for the Rangers, and as I said, he could put a ball from 30, 40 yards onto the spot that you wanted it. He was a great passer of the ball, a great dribbler. Yeah, he was just a great guy. Great guy having the dressing room as well.
But see, when Billy Matheson was on this a few weeks ago, when I asked him who his most difficult opponent was, he actually said it was Tommy McLean when he played.
Tommy McLean, when he played for Kilmarnock.
Yeah. I was expecting him to say Jimmy Johnson.
No, Tommy McLean. Yeah, great little player.
What about the man in the engine room of the team, Alan McDonald?
Oh, honestly, there's a well documented that if you cut him, he bleeds blue blood. He's a real Ranger. 100% real Ranger. Heart again of a lion. A great member of our team. His work rate was incredible. He'd get from 18-yard box to 18-yard box, and never said never. You know, just kept going all day long, and scored a few good goals against Celtic as well, by the way. Just a real Ranger then, and still a real Ranger. You know, some of the boys got together last Sunday, a week ago yesterday, and they're just the love we have for each other is unbelievable. You know, we don't see each other often enough, and we Doddy's different class. I think he's suffering a wee bit with his health, but he's just a great guy.
Yeah, I've met him a few times. He's an absolute diamond.
He is.
I'll throw just one more. Well, one more for the moment. The goalkeeper for most of the 70s, the man who played more games in goal for Rangers than any other goalkeeper in Rangers history, and yet doesn't really get looked upon as a Rangers legend the way a lot of other goalkeepers have done.
Is that the Girvan Lighthouse you're talking about?
It is.
Big Peter, 6'4", 6'5", whatever he is. Great keeper, great pair of hands. Again, Peter was one of the guys that we met up last Sunday in Glasgow. Again, a Ranger through and through. And I would agree that he doesn't get the accolades that he should get. But he is a Rangers legend, there's no doubt about that. And he is in all our eyes, you know. He's a cracking big lad. Yeah, lives in Girvan, hence the Girvan Lighthouse. Yeah, he's a real Ranger through and through.
I think he likes golf more than he likes football these days. But
he's a good golfer.
Yeah, so I'm told. So I'm saving one name for the end because in the 70s there was the two Dereks. There was the two Dereks at Ibrox. There was obviously yourself and Derek Johnson. Was there a rivalry between you? Because it felt to me as if we had just about the two best centre forwards in the country.
They
couldn't both play all the time. So was there a rivalry between you, or was it more like a case of you just like playing together?
Yeah, I don't think there was a rivalry between us. I love the big man to bits. You know, we he was my roommate for the best part of the 7 or 8 years. The last 7 or 8 years. So he's a real mate of mine. And I was a bit pissed off that he got the chance in the League Cup final to score the goal against Celtic. You know, that he got his debut before I did, and he knows that. Yeah. But best header of the ball I've ever seen anywhere. Like fantastic header of the ball. Again, a heart of a lion. But isn't it funny that every one of these players you're mentioning to me, I'm saying they've got hearts of a lion. Yeah. And that's a fact. I just wish we had more of them these days in the club. No, he's no rivalry. Massive friendship. Derek eventually thought it'd be less hard work moving back to centre half, and we all gave him a bit of stick about that. But just a great lad to have in your team and have around about you, and a great motivator, and just a top lad.
Yeah. It still amazes me when I look at Derek Johnson's stats and all the 200 odd goals. He never ever took a penalty. You think he played half his career not even up front. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know, amazing.
So we're not in the Jock Wallace era. So we then went on and won a couple of trebles. But I was going to talk about the second treble season more than the first one. But it's mainly because that was the season maybe the team changed a little bit. Remember?
It did.
Gordon Smith came for Kilmarnock, Bobby Russell came for junior football, and David Cooper came for Clydebank. Yeah. What did that do in terms of these three new young lads in the dressing room, in terms of how it all went about?
Well, it definitely stirred things up a little bit, is maybe a good way of saying it. You know, you had to be on your toes if you were going to play in that team, because there was some players that came in that once they'd found their footing, they became really good Rangers players. Yeah. So you had to get on with it and maybe work a bit harder to keep your place. All good footballers. Smithy was a lovely footballer. You know, Bobby Russell was just different class. Yeah, so it kind of all changed. I maybe didn't get as many games as I would have liked, but these things happen, and I had to suppose fight for my place a bit more.
Fine, I'll say that season that team won the treble before Jock left.
Yeah,
I tell everyone that the most important goal Rangers scored that season for me, you scored it, and nobody remembers it. It was an equaliser against Forfar with 5 minutes to go in a cup tie at Hampden. Because I think the season would have fell apart if Forfar had beaten us.
Yeah, and I think I was a substitute and came on to score that goal.
Yeah, I
think it was. But things. Tell me the year that was again, Davie.
78. That was the start of 1978.
And was Greggy the manager then?
No, Jock Wallace. That was Jock Wallace's last season.
Yeah, well, it did. That was a huge goal for us, you know, to keep us in. That would have been another. If I hadn't scored that would have been another Berwick Rangers, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think big goals were always kind of in matches were kind of what I was fortunate enough to score.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it was my forte because that makes me sound like big-headed, but you know, I just happened to score big goals in games when they were needed. So I just wish it had continued for another couple of seasons, and I hadn't left when I left.
Yeah. So that takes us to the late 70s. So John Gregg took over as manager. Big Jock left, went down to Leicester. We didn't win the league under John Gregg. You only played for a couple of seasons under him, but we did have this great run in Europe in his first season when we beat games you played in, games against Juventus, who were a tremendous team. PSV
Top team.
were a tremendous team.
Yeah.
Is there any slight regret that season we didn't actually go even further in the European Cup?
Oh, of course there is, David. Of course there is. We were drawn against Juventus in the first round. It was dead simple in those days. It was round 1, round 2, quarter-final, semi-final.
Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated. But we beat Juventus over the 2 legs. I think it was 2-1.
Yeah.
And then we're drawn against PSV Eindhoven. And we got through there. And Bobby Russell scored one of the best goals I've ever seen, from a long way out. That was a great result. And then we were drawn against the German side, Cologne.
Yeah.
And they beat us. We should have beaten them. But there is regret. That was a quarter final. It would have taken us into the semis, and who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows where we could have gone then? But yeah, we were all bitterly disappointed we hadn't gone further.
Because that was probably the first really good run in Europe since Barcelona. Actually, Europe hadn't really gone too well in the few seasons before that.
Yeah, well, we got to the final in Europe in Seville, didn't we? A couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, more recently, yeah.
But which we should have won. But no, the Bears are still the only. I think we like it secretly, but I'm not going to wish that Rangers don't ever win another European trophy, because of course we want them to. But the fact that the Barcelona Bears are still hanging in there as the only part of the biggest game in winning it in Rangers history is something we're very proud of. But we need to start doing better over the next few seasons in Europe for the financial side of things as much as anything. So it's really important that, Rangers need to be in Europe. There's no doubt about that. A good Rangers team needs to be in Europe year in, year out. And unfortunately, we've not done particularly well.
Yeah. So you left in 1980 after 10 years. I think John Gregg was starting to break up the team a little bit. And Alan McDonald left just after you. Gordon Smith left just after you. So just feels as if it was just the time to go.
No, I didn't feel it was the time to go. I'd have loved to stay, Davie, for the next. I'd have played for the Rangers for the rest of my time. There's no doubt about that. I'm a Ranger through and through, and I would have played longer. And I seemed to I wasn't getting as regular football with John. And Leeds United, I knew, were sniffing about, and they came in and made an offer, and I had a big decision to make: either turn it down and stay when there's a manager there not playing me regularly,
right,
or do I go to a great English team. And I made the decision to go, but my preference would have been not to go.
Yeah, my
preference would have been to stay and fight for my place at Ibrox. I left when I was 26, for goodness sake, so I should have had another 4, 5, 6 good seasons in me. And the number of fans that came up to me after I left saying, where are you at the moment, Derek? Didn't know, are you still at Rangers? And I'd say, no, I left Rangers, so I don't know. I'm very sad about the way it all ended. And
it's a pity. That is a pity after 10 years.
Just leave it at that, really. I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fine. What I will ask then is, your 10 years at Rangers, who would you pick as the best player you played against? And who would you pick as the best team you played against?
Coops has got to be one of the best players I've ever played with, Davie Cooper. He was so talented. He was amazing. He was an amazing man, and again, gone far, far, far too early.
Absolutely.
There was times we were getting battered, and you give the ball to Davie and go and take it for a run, Davie, and give us a breather, for God's sake. And he would do that. One of the most skillful players I've ever seen. And a very, very quiet and private man off the field. You know, didn't want all the accolades and didn't want all the press. Just a lovely guy from a lovely family. I played against other great players, but he's the best Rangers player, most talented Rangers player.
Yeah.
And as far as
I actually remember him tearing us apart for Clydebank.
I know.
I remember he see his cup ties we played against Clydebank, and he was the best player in the park in all four of them.
I know. He was amazing. He's a lovely guy as well. You know, really nice man. The best team was undoubtedly Ajax.
Yeah.
When we won the Cup Winners' Cup in '72 and Ajax won the European Cup, we unfortunately had to play them in the what was it they call it? Super Cup.
Super Cup, yeah.
And we got battered. But I've never seen a team like that. We'd never seen total football before. You know, we saw Cruyff doing the Cruyff turn. I saw the left backs of Ajax running forward and playing as if they're a midfield player in our half. And then when it breaks down, if it ever did break down, there'd be players would just fill in. Whereas we were known to get back into your place, get back, you know, Sandy or Billy Matheson. It was amazing. The football they played. Cruyff was incredible. Johnny Rep, and Niskins and all these boys. They were iconic, absolutely iconic. They were the best team that I've ever played against.
Yeah, I was at the Ibrox game, and let's just say the better team won.
Yeah,
I'll maybe leave it at that.
Yeah, I think we should.
So, just a couple of questions before we go, Derek. First one is, you're now a member of the Rangers Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So we started this interview talking about your dad playing for the club and you always wanted to play for them. How big an honour is it then, now that you've got to this stage in your life, you can look back and you can look in your mantelpiece and there's a Rangers Hall of Fame trophy on it?
I can't tell you how big it is. It's, I think there's just under 100 Hall of Famers for Rangers in a, what is it now, 150 years history, over 150 year history. So that night when I was inducted, it was in 2010. My dad had passed 20 years before. And that's big regret, was that my dad wasn't there to see me lift the Hall of Fame. And I'm immensely proud that I'm in the Hall of Fame, and nobody can ever take that away from me. And when that young 16-year-old boy walked into the Rangers first team dressing room on my first day and got all my clothes after training slung in the bath and by the Rangers players, particularly Colin Steen, who was to know, or how would I ever know that I was going to be a Hall of Famer one day? Yeah. So I'm very proud of that. And I just want to mention on that, I mentioned my dad passing away in 1990, and that was 20 years, 10 years after I left Rangers. And I remember getting a phone call. The phone rang one night. We lived down south. I live down south now, but I lived in Cheshire at the time, and we were going out. I didn't feel like going out because my dad had passed, and it was probably 2 or 3 weeks after Dad had died, and the phone rang, and my wife says, "Come on, Derek, leave the phone." I said, "No, I can't. I didn't even want to go out." And I said, "No, I'm going to pick the phone up." And I picked the phone up, and it was a big gruff voice of Jock Wallace on the phone. Right. And this is a measure of the man when I said he was like a father figure to me. Yeah. And he said to me, "Listen, son, I've only just heard, I'm sorry I'm late with this phone call, but I've only heard that your dad passed a couple of weeks ago." And I said, "He did." And he said, "I know how close you were to your dad." I says, I was, Jock. And he says, I'm going out tonight, actually. I don't feel like going out. I don't feel like celebrating. I've nothing to celebrate. He said, go out because your dad will always be around you. And that's the measure of the man.
Yeah.
You know, he was just different class. So, yeah. And my dad not being at my Hall of Fame awards, I don't mind telling you, I cried my eyes out that night.
I can imagine. Yeah. As you say, that makes you immortal. That makes you, because for as long as Ibrox has got a marble staircase with a Hall of Fame board at the top of it, your name's on it.
I know.
Which is amazing.
It is amazing.
So, last question. I'll just bring up to date. I know you still absolutely from afar and watch the games. You come up occasionally to see them. That was another season without any trophies for Rangers. We've just endured. So, if you were in charge, how would you ensure that Rangers start bringing silverware back to Ibrox again?
God, where do I start? I saw when Rangers lost the last 4 games, right? We had a chance of winning the league this season, David. We know that. If we'd won our games and won our game against Hearts, won our games against Celtic, we'd have won that league. Yeah. And I'm seeing Rangers going up against Hearts at Tynecastle, scoring the first goal, and eventually getting beaten. I'm seeing Rangers players coming off the field with a smile on their face, and I'm seeing one of them with his arm around a Hearts player actually laughing. That's unforgivable for me. I would never. I just think that's totally not what you do when you're a Rangers player. If Jock Wallace had seen us doing that, any of that, if we'd lost any game, he'd have crucified us for that. I don't think the players understand what a commitment it is to play for the Glasgow Rangers and what an honour it is to play for the Glasgow Rangers. And to give the fans more than what you've got to give the fans more than what you've given them. I definitely think we need more Scottish players on our side. Yeah, we've started that with Lawrence Shankland. I wish we'd got him 2 years earlier, but we've got him now, and that's excellent. Young Finlay Curtis, who I know is on loan with us at the moment, scores a goal for Scotland. Well, what more do you need to bring this boy through? Yep. And I know they're also looking at a young midfield player that plays for Motherwell. So maybe they're getting the hint. That's what we need. We need more players in the backbone of our side that understand what it is for the fans as much as for anybody to play for the Glasgow Rangers. And at the moment, I've never felt that through the season. So I do think we'll always have to buy foreign players if we can afford them, but let's get some Scottish boys in our club again, and because there's been games we played this season, there's not been a Scottish lad in the team. Yeah. So I feel quite strongly about all of that. So yeah,
I think those watching this, you'll find an awful lot of people agreeing with you.
Yeah, I'm sure I will as well. I hope so. Yeah. But you know what, Davie? Once a Ranger, always a Ranger. You know, it never leaves you, and I'm not sure you'll get that from any of the players that leave him this summer. And I could go on, but I'm not going. I might get myself in trouble. So anyway, we definitely need to win leagues. We need to win. We need to get into Europe. We need to have a strong team that competes. We need to win trophies. That's what Rangers are. That's what Rangers are all about. Yeah, we're an institution. Fantastic, Derek. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for agreeing to come on. You have no idea how much I've enjoyed this conversation. I wish you all the best in the future. Thank you. And I hope maybe one day, if you're up at a game, maybe I'll give you a wave when you're out in the park. By all means, give me a shout and tell me if this podcast has gone well. I really want to know if this feedback's been good, bad, or indifferent. Oh, I'm sure I'm sure there'll be lots of comments on it, all of them complimentary. Don't worry about that. Anyway, thanks very much for the memories. And thanks, Davie. If ever there was somebody that came onto this and
articulated what it's like to represent our great club. You've just done it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Davie.
Okay, so everyone, that has been the Rangers Years with the one and only Derek Parlane. I hope you enjoyed it. Next month, we'll hopefully have another Rangers player coming on and telling their story. But for now, from the great Derek Parlane and myself,
Yes.
Bye for now.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.